So the theme of module 2, one of our themes is level 1, the level 1 student, just kind of deepening our understanding and our thinking about how we would organize yoga somethings for a level 1 student. In the class that we just practiced together, there are aspects of that class that I believe are level 1. And then there's aspects of that class that I actually don't believe are very level 1 or kind of push the line a little bit. So I'd like us to chat about those. So let's start with what was level 1. So this can just be like a popcorn share, just what aspects of that class, and just say it nice and loud and clear, felt in alignment with what we know so far about a level 1 student. Blocks. And I modeled with blocks and I taught with blocks as the starting off point, right?
Tabletop versus down dog.
Yes, exactly. So you see how we just skipped it, right? And if you knew down dog, you could do it, right? Like you can go, anyone can go into down dog, but I'm just not going to force anyone there. Okay. Yeah, what else?
I stole it.
Oh, you have the same one? Oh, okay.
I don't know if this is part of it, but like when we did Warrior 1 and Warrior 2, we did do a lot more with it. It's kind of basic classroom.
Just the pose, right? Yeah. What else?
You gave options for staging, so the level 1 people would feel comfortable here, and people that wanted to go up higher had the option to go up.
Yeah.
Pointed that out.
So there were some different options and different arm options and so forth. Yeah.
You be reassured to not strain, to know your body,
Yeah.
to really focus on the breath.
We did tree pose by the wall.
Yep. So we went over to the wall and focus on some alignment with our tree pose. Yeah.
We always knew where we were going. You didn't leave us wondering at all.
You weren't left hanging anywhere, hanging out in a pose.
It felt very secure,
Yeah.
like it was very secure.
Yeah. Pose selection. Does it feel level 1 appropriate?
Crocodile definitely
Yeah.
resting and allowing,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, coming back to mountain pose over and over.
Yeah.
Plank push up,
Yeah.
not full plank.
Right. Yep. We have our half plank or kneeling plank. Yeah. Blanket.
knee on the ground instead of
Yeah.
like runners lunging. That kind of thing.
Yeah. So then what would be, what do you think maybe pushed the line on level 1? What perhaps didn't feel level 1 or you have like question marks around, like, would I do this with a level 1 class or not?
Warrior 1 and 2 felt that way.
They felt intense.
They felt more intense. Perhaps it's because I assumed the intense pose, but yeah, they just felt more. You needed more skill, or you needed like to be able to put your feet in mountain in those poses.
Yeah.
Would you have not pushed up in bridge? Would you have stayed in modified bridge, supported bridge?
I would do bridge. No, I would do traditional bridge in a level 1 class. I would.
Rotated triangle.
We didn't do rotated triangle.
Okay, well.
Triangle?
Yeah.
The triangle pose, the Trikonasana? Okay. Yeah.
Or we rotated to the other.
So triangle pose is,
Right.
so there's open and closed rotations for the spine. So triangle pose of its own thing is an open rotation for the spine. And then there is a revolved triangle, which is a closed rotation of the spine that goes like the other way, which is very advanced and very challenging. Yeah.
I wonder for like, not for the physical body, for maybe
Yeah.
the mind body,
Mhm.
that would have been a lot.
Yes, yes.
If you're a beginner to it.
Definitely. So I would definitely say that. So we practice 3 mudras in that class. And if this were like really like a level 1 population, just like getting used to their physical body, I would choose 1 mudra. And even like in most traditional like level 2 and 2, 3 classes, I would really just stick with 1 mudra. So the fact that we did multiple mudras is a challenge, and some people like they want to feel something or they want to do it or they don't get it, and so we don't want to frustrate them too much with the mudras, right? We want to slowly integrate and practice those in. Yeah,
I can go backwards and
yeah,
what had level 1 aspects. I think the pace really was important. I thought the standing with support for the balancing, but shifting the hip sideways and then pushing it forward, but was it designed to, or effective at raising the awareness of the muscle back there. I think a level 1 person would, as you said earlier, not be able to embody that perception. So I thought that was
Right.
very helpful. Yeah.
Same way in triangle,
yeah,
extend out a little bit, and inhale the fifth and then the
right, yeah.
on the
So getting into, so some of the, we're gonna unpack triangle a bit more this afternoon, but we started to a little bit today, and my hunch is that it felt different maybe today than it felt for the last decade. I don't know, so maybe there are some new aspects or not new aspects to it.
I don't know if
Anything?
it's a regular way to instruct the open triangle, because I think it was for the first time that I experienced it here, distinguishing the rotating from the ribs as opposed to the hips. But I just think the clear, consistent articulation of words that fly, I can do it without opening my eyes, and I think that is a marker of good level 1 guidance.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just piggyback on that a little bit, just in terms of like anatomy, we had from mobility comes stability, right? And there's so many, if we try to teach all these different concepts, and all these different physical concepts, particularly in a level 1 class, it's just like, then they're not gonna remember any of it when they come back next Tuesday for their class, right? So really choosing consistent language and a consistent something that you're going to teach, can be really helpful. And then there was that sort of layer cake idea where we had a lot of repeated body shapes and a lot of repeated, we did different lunges and we did some different, we didn't use the chest at the start, single kneaded chest, we did it again at the end. So it's just, that's a very nice, it's a nice way to practice anyway, regardless of the level, but particularly with a level 1 student, you don't have to like once we've done it once, you don't have to like go through all the steps and explain it again. So it's nice to go into some of these repeated shapes.
In your role model, when you were giving a lot of level 1 things that you weren't even instructing. So for example, when we lay backwards, you would lift 1 knee, and hold under there, and then roll back. It
Yeah.
didn't necessarily tell us, but I think it was instructive by example.
Yeah.
So I know we were in the medium level push the line discussion.
Right, yeah. Well, now, so anything else anything that didn't feel level 1 to you, anything else? I would just say, just kind of the length of the class, just in general. So we had you had about 90 minutes of practice, and that, if we're really thinking like a level 1 student, I would say more in the 60 minutes is probably mostly appropriate. And then maybe 75, kind of depending on and that's more like if you like to have longer shavasanas and longer warming of the body type sequences. And I think that's kind of what Sharon was alluding to, like with like the warriors felt a little harder, the triangles felt a little bit harder, and it was maybe perhaps because it was part of a 90-minute practice, which is just inherently more fatiguing than a 60-minute practice, right? So maybe like a few less postures, a few less sequences for a true traditional level 1 practice.
I wondered about that, but I was so happy to keep moving.
Right.
Stillness that I think, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and now just anything else from practice that feels worth sharing, and it can be something new you explored, something that it can be a like, a dislike, a neutral, just anything if you feel like it's worth sharing to the group. And
One thing for me, because I rarely, if ever, use blocks, is I feel a little unsteady on the blocks when they're in that upright
Yeah.
lying position, and so I'm not sure how to.
I recommend these,
Get the
the thicker
block.
one. Regardless of the level of the class, I just totally prefer these. I feel like those ones are very, yeah, I mean, those are, I feel like those are sometimes a little better for like between the thighs and like there's certain, I'm kind of a props little like hoarder, but I definitely, in terms of like lunge and standing positions for stability, I prefer the thicker ones.
I'm really flexible, so I haven't really needed to use props for extensions or padding or cushioning, but I'm really enjoying trying them and seeing the difference and seeing that sometimes my body really likes using them and there's a purpose for them and that's good. Yeah.
See, I was thinking, I'm also, I consider myself pretty flexible, but I've also learned that I need to be careful with my flexibility because I can do things that might put me out of the pose, but just because I'm flexible doesn't mean I need to like go.
You don't have to go to a 10 every
Go
time.
to a 10 all the time, and
Yeah.
so, and I've noticed that about my body as even I'm getting older, like I'm so flexible, I'm
Yeah.
supinating when I walk, you know,
Yeah.
most people pronate, and so
Right.
I have to be very conscious to be in alignment
Mhm.
and not let that flexibility take over.
Yeah.
Me too, and thinking about that too, because when I get younger, so I'm not injured.
So some people have to focus more on that stability aspect, you know, that's, if we think of stability and flexibility of like two ends of a spectrum. And if you are that kind of bendy person, then maybe having, like, if you go into a pose and you come out of it 10 to 15%, you're gonna go into the more strength aspect of it versus the flexibility aspect of it. Yeah, I had one more thing, but now I don't remember what it was.
I find myself often in these master classes trying to capture in my memory certain phrases that I find very helpful, and it's tough, it's sad because you know I can't remember all of them. But the ones from this that I found helpful were like the language you use, I think, to get us toward a more I don't know if the right phrase is balanced spine or neutral spine, but arch lower back, shine the heart forward. I thought it was very simple phrase that you kept repeating. With respect to the hip, make sure one hip is not higher than the other, the neutral hip, and then asking us to check in with ourselves. Can you make or have a full breath at the moment? And something that's new for me that I think happened yesterday and then repeated today was recognizing the inhale as power. You connected those things I think today, and then that places my inhale, exhale in the right places. That's something that I struggle with remembering where to put inhale and exhale, but remember that remembering the inhale as power helps me understand, you know, like if I'm doing a side stretch, I'm inhaling for the side body, or if I'm exhaling or start with an inhale. If I'm exhaling, then pressing my shoulders forward, so the exhale gets kind of
Like the release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was these were 4 phrases I was committed to remembering.
Okay, nice.
And one of the things you said too about the breath is that the breath guides the body doesn't guide the breath. And I am the same with as you, Lorenzo, where I struggle with like, is this inhale or the cat cow? I can't be inhaling, and like some things feel more natural to me to inhale when I'm being, you know, instructed the opposite. So
Yeah.
trying to get into the like a mental, I need a mental cue of like what, like breathing.
Right, yeah, like big,
Maybe,
small.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like what are the rules for that?
Right.
I don't remember the language around. I was anticipating simplified language for it, Bandha, Asana, what have you. And you did say press palm into the ground, but you didn't get into the complicated nature of it. And I thought that was level 1. But if you get into the detail, you might lose your students. at the same time, I was seeking out something wrong, I have a simplified version of explaining this. I just
Right,
don't know if
yeah.
anyone- But
Figures
it's-
wide, palms to the ground.
Yeah, but I thought just turning our attention to our palms was enough. You know? And then you also talk about caring for our wrists, I like the language you use around that, but
Mhm.
I can't remember what you said, but I'm trying to get away from saying wrist issue or problem with your wrist or pain in your wrist, but instead.
I would say if you're
Point for
taking
care.
care of, whatever it
Taking
is, if
care
you're
of.
taking care of your wrist, if you're taking care of your shoulder, if you're taking care of your spine. Feels like empowering language, like I'm choosing self-care, I'm choosing to listen.
It can be a struggle. I was always taught to frame things in the positive rather than saying, don't lift your shoulders up.
Yeah,
But some people won't hear you,
right.
and you have to every once in a while throw in a don't or a
Yeah.
negative to be, oh, I'm doing it. Yes, you're doing that.
Yeah. That's a very good point, because I 1000% agree. In general, we are going to instruct our students what to do, like this is what we are doing. And then if there's a point that you really, just this human nature, if someone tells you 10 compliments and 1 constructive criticism, you're gonna remember that 1 constructive criticism. It just has a ting to it, right? And that's this human nature aspect of us always looking for the problem, which is actually part of our evolution and what keeps us alive. So that's where if you do throw in like a don't, it should be very selective, once or twice, something that you really want to make sure and emphasize with the students, because there is this like naughty student, don't do that, sort of aspect about it. So mostly what you are going to do, 1% of what you don't do that. Yeah.
I've had them try, say, raise your shoulders up, feel how that feels,
Mhm.
now lower them down, do you feel the difference? Rather than saying don't, making them do the
Yeah.
naughty thing.
Yeah,
can help
exactly.
too.
The through the opposites helps. That same thing with that tree pose is like, you'll see everyone with their hip and butt sticking out to the side, like, and they're like, nailed it pose. And so if we just come out of alignment and into alignment, then we recognize what that feels like. Same thing with the hips in Warrior 2. We'll go over this in our pose breakdown, but we see a lot of like pelvises on their side. I call it surfer pose, like kind of type thing. We'll go over that this afternoon. So yeah, just through feeling the opposite, we can start to learn what balance feels like in the center.
You did that with, is it pelican? What is that one with a bird?
Stork, yeah,
Stork?
yes,
Where you had us
Yeah.
move our hip out
Mhm.
and then bring it back. in.
Yes.
So it's like you over
Mhm.
stretch out, and then when you brought it back in, like, oh, okay,
yeah, yes.
traction.
And that's just stuff you kind of develop over time too, through just observation of students, And-
The Olympian reference for the foot placement. is
Yeah.
Very clear expression that everyone I think can relate to, because we're all looking at clocks to regulate time.
Right.
And then you used a degree that was not 90 for Warrior 2, what was it? that you
I said
said?
60.
60.
Mhm,
I thought that was very different than what I'm used to hearing.
mhm.
I thought that was a level 1 marker,
Okay,
but I just thought it was clear, like gives them greater space for difference of
Yes.
bodies.
for the geometry minded people, yes, otherwise sometimes people are like, what for, they're like, I don't know where, but yes.
Draw the straight line back with the heel.
Right, yeah.
That your instruction for the placement of the feet help to stabilize or ground things. So,
Good.
yeah.
And some of this too, so Lorenzo made the comment like, oh, you didn't like overdo the Hastabanda cueing and stuff. And so part of that comes too from watching your students, if like you give the general cue and you kind of look around, you're like, yeah, they're there, then we're good, we can keep going. If you look around, you're seeing kind of like some wonky looking things, then you might want to just take a pause, step back and break it down a little bit. There's certain things that you don't know what people are feeling, so it can look good and look correct, but they don't, they're maybe dumping or they're in pain or something like that. So you can't have that experience, but you can visually just kind of do visual alignment checks. Okay, now we're going to change this a little bit. Level 1 versus a beginner student. So I had, at the studio, Monday night was my level 1 prenatal friendly class for 13 years. And I had people who would come to my Saturday morning level 2-3 class, and they're in L stand and crow pose and the splits on Saturday morning. And then they're coming Monday evening to my level 1 prenatal friendly class, like every single week. So that student didn't necessarily need the level 1 things that we're talking about, but they wanted it. You know, they wanted that experience. So what we can start to identify is if we're teaching a level 1 class and we have a consistent group of students, all of these level 1 things apply in terms of, let's use our props. Let's choose level 1 appropriate variations of postures. Some of like the pose breakdown type stuff, if they've been coming to your level 1 class for 12 years, they got mountain pose down, they got it, you know, so you might not need to do all that like level 1 breakdown stuff of mountain pose, because they know they're coming for that gentle, loving experience in their body. They're not necessarily coming because they're new to yoga. So then, one piece, just to speak to our ego a little bit, is it can be intimidating sometimes when you're teaching a level 1 practice and someone comes in who they're very physically capable, and sometimes our ego can say, oh, they're going to be bored, oh, they can do more, but they chose to come to level 1 class. They chose to be there, and maybe they made that choice by mistake, and they will learn and correct and maybe come to the, you know, the next class, which is level 2 or something like that. But really, like, stay to your guns and trust that people are going to get themselves to the right level that they need for that day and the right experience that they need for that day. And, you know, or people will come in and say, like, I'm a yoga teacher. Then all of a sudden, like, oh, should we suddenly like throw, you know, crow pose into my level 1 class? No, okay, we keep it consistent. So we have this concept of what these level 1 ideas are in terms of the posture selection that we choose, the modifications that we offer, how deep we go. But then let's differentiate that from a beginner, you know, a beginner class. So if you're teaching a class that's like a beginner, like an intro to yoga, or if you're teaching a class that is like it's a level 1 class, so beginner friendly, you know, and so you got your regular class and your people, and then you have someone new to yoga who comes into the class. So what might you think would be different for the beginner student versus like a seasoned level 1 student?
More instruction on basics,
Yeah,
like the hand position, like really with the breath, and what does it really mean to diaphragmatic breathe, and the props, and just introduce them to all of the very primary steps for each thing.
So they need a little more explanation, right?
They need the, well, even like the, what does it mean to breathe into something?
Yeah.
But also, just some of the concepts and philosophy and stuff like that, like that it's not a competition, that you work to your own
Yes.
level of ability, whatever.
So thematic material for a beginner versus level, you know, like a seasoned level 1, if we're thinking, it is more that, like, you know, we emphasize pain-free, we emphasize if this feels right, we emphasize the diaphragmatic breath. There's these more like really important rudimental concepts. We might not, in a beginner, if I was teaching like an intro to yoga class, like let's say it's a 4-week, 5-week class, I'm probably not going to get into the koshas. You know, that's like a little bit too much for a true beginner, because as we talked about, the beginner student is that person who is learning how to be in their body with breath. Like that we're choosing the practice of hatha yoga, the yoga of using our body. So it is important that we learn how to use our body. Now, if we're giving more instruction and we're having to spend a little bit more time on foot placement, a little more time on arm options, things of that nature, how does that affect our overall sequencing of the class? Yeah, or less, you need to sequence less, something like it takes time to do that. So you need to plan appropriately, whether it's, and I would probably say more in the range of less postures, like because a beginner student might, if you, let's just say you wanted 90 minutes, like if you were a beginner, like never been to yoga, and you see that it's 90 minutes, that might scare them off. 60 minutes just feels like, when people think of like an exercise class, they often think of like a 60-minute something. So if you keep it in that 60-minute range, then it feels like it's part of like a normal range time of class, but you can't sequence it nearly as many postures because you have to go a little bit slower. You're gonna have to watch them a little bit more. And then if you're seeing some interesting little alignment things, you get to stop, pause, and just like break it down a little bit. And give them that little extra love and support so that their beginning practice is coming from a really strong foundation.
Would you also provide more time for them to ask questions, or would that be too interrupting to the flow of the class?
It depends. So if it's a class like intro to yoga for beginners, then I usually encourage questions to be asked and like make myself available after class. If it's a level 1 class that's beginner friendly, then I don't, then I always tell the person if they're new to the studio or new to yoga, I give them a little bit of like a heads up, and then encourage them to check in with me afterwards and let me know how, if they have any questions.
Something that I might do differently at a beginner's class is pay attention to what the space allows. So if there are positioning in the room that wouldn't allow people access to the wall, and they might have problems with lower back, I might just make a note that, in case you have a need to care for your lower back,
Yeah,
you might want to choose a position near the wall in case you need the wall support.
exactly.
At the very beginning, because I know I've been somewhere not being near the wall, and then you're like, oh, damn it, I'm not.
Oh, darn. Hanging out on an island here in the middle of the room. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the props that Janet mentioned, though, I would introduce the mechanics of them, but also take that as an opportunity to positively orient the props, as in like this is.
Yeah.
Like I think at the very first class you talked about disabusing us of the idea or the culture toward the props being a negative thing. So I think it's a good opportunity to create a positive point of entry for a relationship with props.
Agree. And then you just teach it like, this is just the pose. This is how we do triangle. Got a block under our hand. You know what I mean? Like we're not like living in a bubble. Like, we can see pictures of postures and go to a class, look around, might look around the room and see people not using the props. So we can see that there's other options. But if we just have that very prop friendly aspect within the class.
I think I would do what you were doing with asking questions in a way that causes them to understand their perception is an important part of the practice. So embodying the feeling at the moment where you might imagine that they feeling tension or stress, to pay attention to it and to adjust. So I put questions just to cause them to answer them for themselves. There was one more thing that you did that I thought was very helpful. I can't remember. You were saying something like pain-free and something else. It was a 2-part something. We should always use that.
Yeah, I just wrote down
Pain-free. I would say also the breath is like always the diaphragmatic breath, but I have a hunch that's not what you're thinking of.
It wasn't, yeah. I thought these 2 principles were good core principles. I can't remember the second one. We'll go back and watch the video later to find it. Yeah.
All right. Let me know. And so now just kind of like pulling this together, when we think about those 4 concepts of what, this progression of a yogi, this progression of a yoga practice, did any of those core concepts say when you can do handstand? After you do triangle, then you can start practicing headstand. Like, was there any sort of like depth of asana tied to a yoga practice.
No.
No. So what was tied, what was like the thematic, like tied to this evolution of the practice?
Like the awareness and the inner
Yeah,
exploration.
to know thyself, right? Different levels of how to know thyself, to care for thyself, right? So when we think about that, one, we can just kind of let, to whatever level it needs to be, let that reorganize, like maybe the way we're viewing our practice and the way we're viewing asana. So asana is the tool that takes us inward. If you're choosing asana that projects you out of yourself, like whether it's, oh, they can do that, I can't, or how long are we going to be here, or anything that projects you out of yourself, then you're not using the tool appropriately. You're using a hammer when you're supposed to be screwdrivering, or something like that. So really emphasizing that with our students, and I think with a beginner student, is so beautiful that could be the foundation. I think depending on when you started practicing yoga, when and where you started practicing yoga, sometimes there is a really big emphasis on if you can, then go here, then go there. Like, it's just on what position can you get your body into? And there's no of how aware can you be? How, can I be comfortably seated here? Can I have breath here? And so that beginner and level 1 student is such a beautiful place. And I think that is why a lot of the 2, 3, heated vinyasa people will come to a level 1 class, because it's that reminder of what that looks like and what that feels like in the body. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. I was looking for a metaphor for props, and I'm working through it, and I have raised some and rejected them. Hoping that gets me closer, but I
Okay.
thought training wheels was something to reject, because we hope to shed our training wheels to be on just 2 wheels.
Right.
To think about bricks, but I thought the whole process of pathway to really free your mind away from the attention being called to wherever you might have pain, to perceive the muscle stretching or the breathing into one space. So the props make that possible. But I can't think of what I'm thinking of, trying to find, and maybe it's a class if people have ideas that come up later.
Right.
Share them. I'd be interested in knowing.
I think you're on the right track with the prop, like, if we can make the breath the foundation of the class and have the props support that foundation of the class, I think you're on the right track. But in terms of a metaphor, I'm sure I have one in there. I'm sure someone in here has heard one too. But it's one of those, like, if people say, like, name an animal that starts with P, you're like, I got nothing, so let's just see, does anyone have one off the top of their head that they can think of?
Does it have to do with alignment or whatever pose you're in?
It could have to do with alignment, but in terms of like a metaphor, like,
The only ones I could think of that will kind of, based on kind of job you have, so like socioeconomic status or access to a car would be, we don't think about adjusting our car seat as a driver as being a positive or negative thing, it just is.
right.
And that you adjust it so you can see over the edge
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
car, and see all around you to do it, and we
Mhm.
never think of it. as
I think that's a good one, actually. It's a really good one.
I thought the chair at the desk,
Yeah.
could have be up, down.
Right,
people who
right.
stand where they're working, I don't know, people who don't drive, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, I think those are both good ones.
The ironic thing about blocks that I've always had is just, like, when I think of blocks, I always think of like mental blocks.
Oh,
And I never wanted to really use blocks because I felt like I'm like, oh, that means I'm getting old, I can't do it.
yeah,
But these blocks are actually permission
yeah.
to, like, it's okay, like,
Right,
you
right.
you probably have short arms and
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to,
Yeah,
these
you
are not
gotta, you need the floor a little higher.
yeah, this is an adaptability thing and an accessibility thing, and it's also, but it's more permission than it is an actual like
Yeah.
block.
It's like an extender or a stepping stool.
Right, so it's interesting because I feel like, so Jan and Carla, you're kind of like talking about it from the, like, I've been practicing yoga for a while, and now I get to use props, and then Lorenzo, you're kind of, I feel like that, like, like the car seat thing. I mean, it could be for the person who's been practicing yoga for a while, but I feel like it's really good for someone who's new to yoga because you can just neutralize it right off the bat with something like that. Like you're not less than because you have to move the seat or adjust the mirror. It's just what you are, you know? And so I feel like that could be like a really good, if it's one of those, like if everyone had been like taught yoga from that vantage point from the start, it's your growth and your yoga path can look different.
If I were to extend it, then I would say the being able to see and perceive the things around you will allow you to drive safely.
Yeah.
And these props are like adjusting the seat allows you to find the breath. Like
Yeah.
you're looking for the always in the breath and getting to wherever the pose posture is supposed to take you. I don't know.
I think that's I actually think that's a really good analogy.
Well, and when you adjust your car seat, you have to do it. You have to do it all the time for the rest of your life.
Right.
And so many people, their goal is to get rid of the blocks.
Right.
And you know, like you wouldn't all of a sudden decide that you didn't need to adjust your car.
Right,
seat.
yeah.
But you know, I feel like
Right.
the mat is a block, or the mat is a prop too, because it's keeping us from sliding and slipping all over the place.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
stabilizing our poses, so,
Right,
I mean, it's just, the mat is a flat block.
it's true. Or like your bare feet or your,
Yeah.
like your yoga clothing versus your, you know,
Jeans.
skinny jeans, you know, like it's all. It's actually, those are good. These are good ones. These are good ones. These are new ones. So I have my sun salutation gal here. And isn't she cute? I just love her. She is like just so stinking
So
cute
pretty.
and bendy. And look at like her ponytail. Like it is like, it doesn't matter where her body is. It is just like defies gravity. It's perfect. Okay. This is a learning tool, but we have to get past like just how sweet and bendy she is, okay? Because she's unrealistic. Okay, so first of all, so this is a sun salutation, right? And one thing, just in general, I really, as we talk about this, like neutralizing the yoga practice, just the yoga practice is the tool for my journey inward, period. You know, so it doesn't. The postures to a certain point don't matter, like the depth of the pose. So when we see poses, not so much with mountain pose, but with like upward arms, like we can see a back bend, which she's so out of alignment, but we won't get just like, I'll let that rest. But so we can see like, you know, upward arms, like we see a back bend, we see arms straight forward. We might just see hands staying at the heart if we're taking care of our shoulders. Then we start to see these different modifications or chromas of the postures just when we look at it. So when we look at forward fold, what else can we just start to see in our head with? So this is just such a beautiful forward fold because her feet are flat on the ground, her hands are flat on the ground, her ponytail is defying gravity, like so. But what else could you see with, you know, when you see this? Like, what are some modifications of this?
Knees.
Bent knees, yeah,
Hands on block.
yeah. Yeah, so, right, okay. And then
Coming down so far,
what?
not having the bendy so far, like
Yeah.
more of a curving your low.
Right, so she lost her lumbar, but well, she does have a lumbar curve there. She lost her lumbar curve, yeah. All right, our lunge. What else? So this is one option of lunge. What else can we see?
Blocks.
Blocks, yeah.
Get under the knee.
So a little cushion under the knee up, knee down, right? So we're just starting to see these options.
3 feet closer together.
Yeah, that's pretty wide, long stance back. So the thing about stance length that can, no, actually not necessarily, but what can be helpful is in terms of the stepping back, like, so if the body is not available to do it, it won't do it because it'll fall. You know, it's a stability thing, but sometimes the body can step back further and people will practice without intrinsic stability as well. So, yeah. Okay, let's look at our plank. What else could we see when we see plank?
Modifications to knees.
Yeah, tabletop, knees to the earth,
elbows.
yeah, forearms down.
One leg, knee and then one leg back, would that be a modified plank?
Oh, sure, like a half plank.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Or a side plank, but we wouldn't be doing that now.
right, yeah. So we're thinking, we're in the world of transitions right now. We're transitioning to transitions. And even just like child's pose, like skip it, like skip it asana is an option. And since we're looking at these modifications though, we can also, modifications can increase intensity as well. So maybe there's a leg lift or something like that, so we can always increase intensity. All right, when we see this chaturanga, what are some other things that we could just automatically see in our head?
Knees.
Knees.
Suggest child pose instead of doing chaturanga
Yeah.
at all.
Or coming down under your forearms and lowering down to the earth, yeah.
Question about the chaturanga. I mean, this is an interesting angle because I always think you can't see how far her elbows are from her body. Are there variations that we should be encouraging or allowing? Because I've only heard, make sure your elbows are close to your body.
Right, so it's tricky because it's in alignment with your shoulders. So you want your elbows and your shoulders basically like in a line together. And so it ends up, because of strength of the tricep, we end up splaying the elbows. Like that tends to be like where we lose it. But on the opposite, we can overdo this too. So if I do this, like my elbows are coming in narrower than my shoulders. So it really is just like neutral with the shoulders. So the cue often is like, hugging the elbows in towards the body, but it's not to the ribs. It's just to alignment with the shoulders.
But it's not a place where we would look to increase or decrease intensity with any proposed.
No,
modifications.
no, yes.
Got it, thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Our cobra pose, what else could we see here?
Low cobra.
Low cobra, yeah. I don't even know what she's doing there, honestly, but like, she's got her hands a little forward there, but
Up dog.
well, her hand, up back, your hands are your hands are under the shoulders, so she's just so good. She's so good.
A tiny cobra, maybe with the hands lifted, is that a?
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that-
absolutely. Yep, hands lifted, cobra. We could see sphinx pose. I think someone said that. Okay, so just, okay, down dog. What else do we see with down dog?
Child's or tabletop.
Child's or tabletop, right?
Bend the knees.
Yeah, bend the knees. You have to maintain the neutral spine.
I think to get there, maybe, I think I've learned here though, be on the balls of your feet, bend your knees, and then press your hips up. And then
Yes.
try to readjust your heels down
Yeah.
to get there.
Yeah, so even just like when we look at this transition of like, up dog, down dog, like that's not always enough, right? So like we can say up dog, down dog, but then once they're there, bend your knees, get your head, then we have to like refine we get people like 80% there, and then through our cueing, we refine the posture and refine the alignment of it.
You could do 3-leg arm or hand.
Exactly, so we could add in some
Right.
intensity, a leg lift, 3-legged dog. Right, and then the ones on the bottom are those are repeats. So you guys are really good. You're starting to just get this lens of when we see postures, we can just see these different modifications of the pose.
For down dog, I've heard different cues on the neck and head. Some people say kind of let it hang, and some people say keep it more.
Right, keep it, so definitely the alignment, body alignment would be your head, like your head between your shoulders isn't realistic, so your head actually like a little bit above, like if you're in down dog, it would feel like your head is above your shoulder, or I'm sorry, above your upper arm line, so that would be neutral spine. Because can you see my neck? And now look with my head between my shoulders. I've lost my, see here and here, here and here. And so personally, I only want to empower my spine. Like I don't want to lose I want mobility and strength in my spine. I really don't want flexibility in my spine. So I'm always going to opt for the neutral spine, like whenever I can.
So when people say like, shake your head, yes and no.
Well, you can do that to like let go of tension a little bit, but I don't think that that's. I wouldn't do that in down dog. Like I would do that more in like a forward fold or a straddle fold. I wouldn't really do that in down dog because there's so much strength in the upper body that's necessary, and your cervical spine strength would be part of that. Yeah. Mhm.
You said last time, down dog is level 2.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. You can, it could be an option in a level 1.
Right.
You know, just like, you
You
know,
offered it.
if people have been coming a bunch and things like that. But we, yeah, we're not going to like build a sequence off of where it's mandatory, like everyone needs to be in down dog until it's level 2 plus. But, okay, so let's look at this. The sun salute is essentially, once we're in active asana, these are our transitional postures, okay? And when we're starting to like think about how to transition around our mat, if we can like, we gotta kind of like step into the sun salute to get us from here or there. So let's just say that you're in mountain pose and the next pose is warrior 1, okay? So you step into the sun salute, inhale, arms to the skies, exhale, forward fold. If you want to have forward fold or not, you know, like that's optional. Exhale, step back into runner's lunge. And from runner's lunge, then you set up your warrior 1. Okay, and you do whatever you're doing, you know, warrior 1, whatever your sequence is. And then once you're done with that side, you have to step back into the sun salute. So how you came into it is how you're going to come out of it. So you finish your sequence, you step back into the sun salute. And you can either, so in our practice today for our level 1 student, we just reverse through the sun salute back to mountain pose each time, right? We just did this upper half of the sun salute as our transitional poses in and out. Now, let's say we took that exact same sequence that we did today and wanted to make it like more like level 1, 2, or even level 2. Well, then after, so we go into our sun salute, we do our warrior 1 and whatever we're gonna do, then we come out of it into our lunge, and we could just continue through the whole sun salute, you know, end of mountain pose and start the whole thing over. So that's going to create more intensity and more heat within the practice. Are you following me? Okay, so same thing too, like let's just say now, these are different like landmarks of within your yoga mat essentially. So let's say you are in cobra pose, or let's say you're in sphinx pose. Okay, so you're on your belly, right? So you're in sphinx pose, but the next pose is tree pose. So you gotta step into the sun salute where you are and start moving through the sun salute until you get yourself back to mountain pose. So each pose has a base. The base is either mountain pose, so like all of our standing balances, chair pose, the base is mountain pose, you gotta get yourself to mountain pose. Most of our standing asanas are asymmetrical standing asanas, so our warrior 1, our warrior 2, our extended angle, our triangle, all that, the base is runner's lunge. And from runner's lunge, we set up our feet and practice the asana. So you gotta get yourself to these bases. Prone positions, you know, our base is on our belly, so we've got to go through, we know we've got to go through this or our modifications of this to get to our belly. And then seated postures are a little different, right? So like, as long as we're like within the sun salute, it can be kind of, I don't want to say easy, but you know, like once we get really comfortable with the sun salute and stepping in and out of it for our transitions, we start to understand. But then like, what if we're in mountain pose and the next thing is like a seated pose, like Sukhasana or butterfly, something like that. You're in mountain pose and you need to be in seated. Well, you still have to go through your salute, but where would you deviate from the salute to get to seated?
You give yourself the tabletop.
Yeah,
Yeah, or once you're on your belly.
Right, so you gotta get yourself to tabletop. And so there's two different ways to do that, like, or points of entrance. So one point of entrance, or maybe like three, one point of entrance is from runner's lunge. And then the other knee meets, like the front knee meets the back knee, tabletop, right? Other point of entrance could be from plank too, if you want to step back to plank and then lower the knees to tabletop. Or if you are wanting to do a full, like the full, vinyasa deal, then from like your down dog or child's pose, you get to tabletop. From tabletop, we switch our feet to the side, come back to seated, right? And so then can we also see how we could take those same points of entry to get ourselves from like mountain to supine on our back as well? Because then we have to choose one of these points of entry to get to seated, and then from seated, we go to supine. Yeah, makes sense? Okay, we're gonna practice that. So what I'm going to do is give each of you a sheet of paper with a yoga posture on it. And we are going to move in a circle. And from whatever pose was last taught, you're going to cue the transitional postures to get into the pose that you have. Okay, and I want to be very clear, what the poses that I'm giving you are not good sequencing. I would not encourage you to use these. It's a teaching device to teach it for us to learn how to get around our mat. It's not like a good sequencing. It's not a sequence that I love. Okay, so let me find my pieces of paper. And we're gonna do, so we have two sequences. We're going to do each one twice. The first time is just like the down and dirty, like just get us from where we are to where we need to be, okay? The second time we do it, we're going to do it all level one, okay? So it might be, you might do it the same, you might do it full level one both times, but don't feel compelled like you have to. If you just kind of want to like go through what you're most comfortable with or what best matches the practice that you practice, you can do that the first time, and then the second time we do it level one. Okay, so we will start with, and we'll start at a different point each with the two different sequences. So here is yours and yours. Oopsies, Jessica, this is yours. Can you see that?
Yes, I got it.
You got it? And you're
Yep.
going to be after Carla, so you're the third person. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
So we're coming up with the poses that get to this.
You're going to
pose?
do, yes, you're doing, it's transitional postures that you're cueing. Okay. We're starting in mountain.
Hi, mountain.
What?
No, we're starting.
No, we're starting in mountain. Okay. But just give it a second till our group returns. Can't really prepare yet because you don't know what's coming, but that's okay. That's the whole point. And yeah, I'm going to turn my mat inward. It's warm in here, yeah? Like, is it too warm? Is it just right?
That's right.
It's just right? Okay, all right, good.
Nice and toasty.
Okay.
Are you warm?
It's okay, I'm the outlier.
I'm a little warm because I'm walking around and doing stuff. Otherwise I would be on the chilly side. Yes.
You said mountain? You have mountain?
Yeah.
I think you also have mountain.
Do you have mountain
I'm
also?
starting in mountain, I'm ending up in child's pose.
Oh, no, you can't tell him? Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's
Never mind.
talking about
having
Oh,
Started it.
no. No, you cheater.
I just was confused about where we were starting, if he was starting or she was starting.
Right. Oh, yeah, but yeah, so
Okay.
there's just an organic experience that's going to happen.
Okay.
A little feather in the air.
Not anymore.
Oh, you might want to, you can switch your mat over to the side a little bit then.
It's okay, I might will work under these conditions.
Option to create the path of least resistance should you choose.
Okay. Yeah. I just think about in my own home, I have different ceiling levels.
Yeah.
And if I'm ever instructing a Zoom class and someone has a low ceiling, I wanna be
You'll
able
have to do
to
that.
understand that point of view.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm okay with
I'm
it.
the perfect person to be under the light.
So like, it's okay, this is what you. do.
Although right
Instead,
here,
trying to find it.
even I ran into this,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
when I was in that
on like
spot.
garden level and lower levels, the ductwork areas are
Mhm.
usually, yeah.
I think in the hot yoga studio on Commerce Drive in Milwaukee, even though I can scrape the ceiling with my hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't feel very tall, I think 6 feet is pretty average for me, I guess. So anyone taller would have a huge challenge.
Well, at our previous studio, you probably would have been, it would have been like, maybe like this, like you might have been able to touch, but a lot of it was like, well, we don't have a lot of men here, so sometimes you're like, oh no, our ceiling's fine. Because most people are like 5'9" or less, We need the whole group for this. Jan, do you know what we're doing? The transitional, so where Annie leaves us off, then you're gonna cue the transitional poses to get to the pose that you have, yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, this is. We need everybody here for this to work. So,
We just want to-
sunshine is nice.
It's still really cold.
My watch says 36 degrees.
Oh, that's nice.
It's asking how it can help me. I like need a tutorial on this guy. Me too. Like watch some YouTube videos. All right.
So I'm saying it out loud, or I'm just doing it?
Yeah, you're telling us what to do. You are the boss of us.
Okay. So from mountain pose, forward, go into your forward fold.
Step into pause,
Step-
come back up, step into your sun salute, come back to mountain pose.
Hmm?
Step into your sun salute.
Oh, I have to step into
Yeah,
this.
so yeah, inhale, arms to the sky.
Inhale, okay, so inhale your arms up to the sky. Fold forward. Fold forward.
Yeah, exhale forward.
Remember, lower. And step back, step your. You want me to do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, step your left foot back
To where?
to runner's lunge. And drop your knee to the floor. Have your right knee, left knee to the tabletop. And then push back so that your hips are on your feet. And go into child's pose.
Yeah.
And then I would cue the different arm positions. So
Yeah. Yeah, we're just doing transitional stuff right now. Okay.
Carla, you are up. All right. From child's pose, bring your blocks in. Hands to tabletop, back is aligned. Step your right foot forward between your feet, followed by the left foot. Inhale, bring your arms up, swooping up to the sky. Exhale down, hands to heart center. And bring your arms to mountain pose.
And Jessica, it's your turn. I don't know if you can hear.
I can. This is gonna be really messy, I think. So I have to get us all the way back to my goal.
To your pose, yes. So step into the sun salute. We're in mountain pose. Step into the sun salute.
Okay, so let's raise our arms up to the sky. Swan dive, forward folds. And then we'll step our right leg back into
where?
into runner's lunge. And step the left leg back to meet it.
To what? Where are we in now?
To plank. So let's go into a tabletop. Bring your knees down gently. Well, maybe I didn't want to do that. Let's walk our hands forward, slowly lowering your belly, your chest, and your elbows under your shoulders for.
Where are we lowering to?
Totally missed that. What?
Where are we lowering to?
Into cobra.
So to the ground though. So you gotta get all the way down to the ground.
Oh, okay. So forehead to ground. And then gently lift into cobra. And then back down.
What do you lift to get into cobra? You've got a hard one, so and this is
I know, and I'm trying to do it from far away too. So,
right. So what this?
So lift your spine gently, open your heart just a little bit, and then forehead back down to ground.
Good. And now Lorenzo, it's you.
Thank you.
Please take a moment. That's the idea, is that we're kind of figuring this out on our toes a little bit.
All right, bring your awareness to your palms and tuck your toes underneath your feet and begin to press into your palm and send your hips back to your heels
What pose?
into child's pose.
Oh, just child's pose.
And then walk your hands back to your knees. Put your hands on one side of your body, your palms place them on your left side of your body. Swing your feet over the right side of your body. And now you're seated. Walk yourself over to your mat. And we're going to roll backwards. So lift your right leg, put your hands under your hamstring, and then roll back to the ground. And now place your feet on the ground, both of them. Extend your legs so that they're flat, if that's comfortable for your low back. If it's not comfortable for your low back, you might place your feet on the mat and lift your knees. Not lift them off the ground, but just have your feet on the mat. And then allow your knees to draw into each other so that they're touching. So you can either be lying flat on the floor with your legs straight or with your knees.
What pose are we in?
And we're now in constructive rest.
Yes.
That's right, there's a constructive rest.
And your palm should be facing up on the side of your body.
Okay. Miss Jenny, you're up.
All right, get those knees bent, feet on the floor. Pull your knees into your chest, hands behind your knees. Rock yourself front to back. And the third time, bring yourself up to seated. Bring your hands forward in front of you. Take those legs up to the side, bringing yourself to tabletop. From here, curl those toes under, press your hips up into down dog. Looking up at the top of the mat, as many steps as you need. Step yourself forward into forward fold, using your blocks if you need them. Inhale, roll yourself up to standing, bring those arms up overhead. Exhale them down. Mountain pose.
All right, from mountain pose, lift your arms to the sky as you inhale and exhale, forward fold. Inhale halfway up with hands on your shins. Hands to the floor and step your right foot back to runner's lunge with your knee down. And have your left
foot, meet your right foot, so set that back to runner's lunge. And then cross your ankles as you go back. And to the seated position.
So from seated, make your way into tabletop. Place your hands in front of you, yeah, one at a time. Then bring your right foot forward, runner's lunge. And then with your left, bring your left to your right. Forward fold. Halfway lift. Sweep your arms up to the sky. And down into prayer. And then down into
Inhale, sweep your arms up to the sky. Swan back down. Forward fold. Half lift. Sweep your hands to the ground. Step your right foot back. Drop your heel.
Back to what?
Step into runner's lunge. Dropping the right knee down. Bring your left knee back. To tabletop. Swing your legs, both legs and feet to the left. Come up to your bottom. Bring your legs up in front of you. One to the middle of your mat. Extend your legs and slowly roll down. Your palms facing up, relax into the earth.
All right. You did it. All right, back up to seated. We're trying to challenge you, so that's. And and then you just have so much more love for your yoga teachers after you do that. You think, wow, I never knew it was so hard to get you around your mat. Okay, now you know what's coming. So you have just like, it's like 1-2 minutes. Don't leave the room, like just like 1 to 2 minutes. Level 1. Make your cues all level 1. Use props, use bent knees, things like that. I just want to clarify, in my brain, when it says constructive rest, this is constructive rest with the knees bent, and this is corpse pose or shavasana. Just, it's all good. Sometimes we just need to become bilingual in like what people's expectations are. So,
Question, I found it useful to, but
Yeah.
my knees fall into each other, that also still.
it's so good. Yep, it's a modification of constructive rest, and it's very good for lower back discomfort.
Okay,
So if someone's taking care of their back, that's where I would tell them to go.
really noted.
Okay, so go ahead, take a minute and think about how you're gonna make your cues level 1. And this is a learning environment, so if we need to adjust, we're going to adjust, like, so if there's a goof or whatever, it's all part of the learning experience, so don't put too much pressure on yourself, and we're all learning from each other right now. All right. So let's come into mountain pose. So just keep thinking, step into the sun salute. And give the level 1 variations to get to where you need to go, from where you are to where you need to go.
Okay. I have your blocks available at the front of the mat. Lift your arms to the ceiling with a slight back bend. And come forward with your hands on the block in
Bend the knees.
okay, I was gonna say with the knees bent, but with the knees bent. normally I would say like try to get your belly to your thighs or whatever. you
Yeah,
know,
no.
But, okay. Let's see, okay, so using the block, step your right foot back into runner's lunge. And drop your knee gently to the floor. I don't know what this is called.
Kneeling lunge.
Kneeling lunge. Have your left knee meet your right knee, kneeling lunge.
Kneeling.
And then put yourself in the tabletop, like however, I would have to come a little bit closer to put myself in the tabletop. Release the blocks. And sit back on your heels. And lower your head to the floor in child pose.
You're good.
Okay, I was gonna do the forearm thing, but
Aren't you child's pose?
I released the blocks.
Is the pose you're going to child's pose?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're there. Okay.
Okay, so I don't need to give the modifications to the
No, you're good.
arms. Okay, all right. Okay, so we're in child's pose.
Right, so-
We're just on transitions. We're not on like practicing child's pose,
Okay,
if you will. Yeah.
Okay.
From child's pose, bring yourself back into neutral spine tabletop. Hands over shoulders. Bring the blocks back onto the mat. Left and right. And this time, bring your left foot forward, runner's lunge.
Between the hands, left foot between the hands.
Left foot between the hands, runner's lunge. And step forward with the right foot. Forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale. Forward fold. Inhale, swoop your arms to the sides all the way up. And exhale down, hands to the side, hands, palms forward, mountain pose.
And Jessica, it's your turn.
Ready?
We're ready. Yeah.
Okay, inhale, sweep your arms up above your head. Exhale, swan dive down into forward folds using your blocks if you'd like. We'll do a halfway lift, also using your blocks. Back down. Let's go. Step your right leg back into runner's lunge. Bring your knee down gently. Bring your left leg back to meet your right. Walk your hands forward into a,
What pose are we in, Jessica?
tabletop. Move your hands forward just a little bit into a modified plank or a kneeling plank. Then lower slowly down your belly, your chest, then your forehead. And we'll raise up very gently using your back into a tiny little cobra. And then back down, forehead to the ground.
Thank you.
Bring your awareness to your palms and your knees. You want to press back into tabletop. Lift your chest. Walk your hands back so that they're beneath your shoulders. And now you want to extend your hips back to your heels, sitting on your heels. And then shift your feet to the right side underneath you. Push it down. And then you want to walk yourself forward on your mat just a bit. And then you want to grab underneath your right knee or thigh, and then allow yourself to roll back down to the floor. You want to place your right foot back on the floor, flat feet. And now you want to place your hands on the sides of your body with your palms facing up. And this is constructive rest. You should ask yourself, what do I need to fully rest into the ground, trust it, if you want me to wait.
Thank you.
You are going to roll onto your side and gently press yourself up to a seated position. Bringing your hands in front of you.
Do level 1 with the foot swoosh.
So feet first. For me,
Yes.
it's easier to do hands first.
For a lot of people, this is pretty hard to do. To roll, or they don't have like the flexibility. Me too. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what. So
Okay,
this
so-
way,
All
yeah,
right, so
yeah.
take your feet over to the side, bring your hands forward, taking yourself into tabletop position, lining up those knees under your hips. Your wrists under your shoulders, they can be wider. Grab those blocks under your hands. Looking forward to the top of your mat. Bring your right foot between your hands. And then follow with that left foot, bringing yourself into forward fold. Generous knee bend if you need that. Inhale, roll yourself up to standing, arms come up overhead. Exhale them down to your sides, mountain pose.
Knees bent, and your hands on the box. Yeah. Exhale, forward fold. Step the right foot back to kneeling runner's lunge. Right leg to the tabletop. Take your blocks off to the side. And sweep your legs to one side as you sit back. That's really it.
Yeah, do the push switch. So this is like, this can, if you've got hip stuff and knee stuff, this can be hard.
Okay.
So let's do the foot switch then, come forward, yeah.
Feet out to the side. Move back your way to the tabletop. Grab your blocks. On tabletop, step your right foot forward into the lunge. And then forward fold, the slight bend in the knees, using your block. Halfway.
And just after, if you're gonna do a halfway lift, then also do a forward fold.
Okay.
And then all the way up, so just add that forward fold.
Inhale, reach the arms up to the sky. Scoop your arms down to the floor, hold the hands placed on the mat. Step the right foot back, dropping the knee down into low lunge. Bring the left knee back to meet it. Slowly come into child's pose, hands on the block or release them and come onto the mat. From there, swing the legs around to one side.
Come into tabletop first, so let's do that from tabletop.
Okay, so from tabletop, we're gonna push our feet to one side, come back on our bottoms, reach up front, into the middle of the mat, place your hand behind your, underneath your knee and your hamstring, and gently roll yourself down the mat. Feel yourself secure in the earth. Place your foot on the mat, bring the left leg foot up to meet it, and your knees can touch together, hands resting at your side, palms facing up, and breathe.
What is this?
Constructive rest.
Thank you. Okay, good. So back up, so you can see you're getting, right, you're getting better, right? Like you get there, and by better, just more easeful, right? You kind of know where you're going and what you gotta do. We're gonna do it one more time, okay? And this time, so just a couple things about transition poses versus like sequenced poses, if you will. So when we're doing, like, let's say you're doing tabletop as like you're setting up for cat-cow, you know, then it's really important to like wrists under shoulders, neutral spine, like all those like alignment cues are important because you're going to be there for a while. If you're using tabletop as a transition just to get me from here to there, then it's tabletop, period, you know. And same thing like if you're using like lunge pose or something like that as a transition, just step your right foot back to lunge, step your left foot back to lunge, or so, you know, so you don't have to give all the nuancy type stuff when it's a true transitional pose. So let's think about that. Okay. And then let's think about adding some breath cues when we move. So the order of our cue is, we say the breath first, inhale or exhale. And then we say what body part's gonna do something and what they're doing, what that body part's doing, and then the pose name. Breath, what's doing what, and then the pose. So inhale, extend your arms to the sky. Exhale, bend your knees, hinge forward, forward fold. Inhale, hands to shins, lift the spine, half forward fold. So we're gonna try to get as concise as possible with these cues. And so this is a process. So give yourself some grace. This is a process. So just start going into the process. And it's a process with some nuances. So I'm just going to share some of those nuances with you. From my practice and perspective, when you're truly in the sun salutation, the breath cues are very applicable. You know, inhale arms to the skies, exhale forward fold. Well, and these two get combined together. So otherwise it's like inhale, half forward fold, exhale, step to lunge. So when you're here, the breath cues are, you know, easier to give. If you are going into, once you're going into seated or supine to seated to tabletop, when you're in, like, when you have to do that, like step out of the sun salute, the breath cues don't really match. You can't, you know, you can't, like, when you're rolling back onto your back, like you can't align that to your breath. You just want them to get safely on their back or safely up to seated. So this time, when you're within the sun salute, try to add inhale, body part, and pose, and just think like down and dirty. Like I just need to get you from point A to point B as fast as possible. Not like talking fast, right? Yeah, right. But with as few, okay, no, with as few words as possible, like the most direct languaging you can come up with today in this moment. Okay.
Succinct.
Because these are transitions. Transitions are succinct. When you're hanging out in the pose and doing all the things, then you save all that stuff for that. Okay. All right. Mountain.
Local nut.
And self-care, if you need a break, if you need to sit out a pose, sit out a pose. So please just do what you need to do to teach your part, but if you need to take a little break, take a little break.
So from mountain, inhale your arms up with a slight back bend. Exhale forward into forward fold, hands on the block, knees bent any amount that's comfortable for you. I left out I left this out before. Okay, so then inhale, hands to the shins and straighten your back for half forward bend. Exhale into forward bend. Inhale your right leg back into lunge with your knee on the floor. Exhale and have your left knee meet your right in tabletop. I'm trying to decide if this is a level one, if I'm getting rid of the blocks or not. Should I move into child's pose with the blocks?
It would just depend on what's coming next. So since we're just doing transitional, like if,
Because child's pose is coming from here. and so-
right, yeah, so I would just get rid of it just depends on what you're doing next,
Okay,
you know,
okay.
so, and we don't know, because these are just transitional poses,
Okay.
so I would get rid of the blocks.
All right. And from tabletop, lower your hips to your heels into child's pose. Your forefoot on the floor. And your arms behind you with your palms facing the ceiling.
Carla, I'm gonna give you, since we're kind of outside of it, it's usually an inhale into tabletop, just so for anyone who, okay.
So on your next inhale, bring yourself to tabletop position, wrists over shoulders,
Shoulders over wrists.
shoulders over wrists. And we're gonna can we do a couple cat cows here? Or do
Just
we have to-
transitions,
we have to get
just
to it?
succinct,
Okay.
succinct.
All right, and inhale, bring your right foot forward between your hands, followed by your left foot, forward fold. Take a breath in, half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, arms out to the sides, swooping up, hands together. Inhale,
Exhale.
exhale. And arms to the side, palms facing forward, mountain pose.
Jessica, you're up.
Inhale, sweep your arms up to the sky. Exhale, swan dive down, forward folds. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward folds. Right knee back, set it down into runner's lunge. Left leg back,
So
to
step,
the right.
back to forward fold. Jessica, 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. And then right knee back is kind of confusing. Can you step us, so kneeling lunge comes from runner's lunge. So can you step us through runner's lunge and then lower the knee? Does that make sense?
Right leg back. Yes, right leg back into runner's lunge.
Thank you.
Set your knee to the floor. Left leg meets the right into tabletop. Walk your hands forward into modified plank. Inhale, lower yourself to the floor. Forward to forehead to floor. Inhale, lift into cobra, and exhale down.
Thank you.
We go where the palms inhale to tabletop. Exhale, bring your hips back to heels. You're gonna switch your feet over to the right.
Do it from tabletop rather than from virasana.
So we're in tabletop, and now shift your feet over to the right side of your mat and sit down. And then put your feet flat on the mat and walk yourself forward a bit. And now place your hands under your right hamstring and get ready to roll back down to the mat. You can place your right foot on the ground. Place your hands on the side of your body on the floor. And breathe in. Exhale. And now we constructive rest.
Except that my left foot is still flat. Sorry. You only told me to put my right foot down.
Being literal.
I
So
know.
try, no, but we do an exercise that in the later module. So just try to get the word constructive rest out a little bit sooner. It's just my only. So once we're on our back, just say constructive rest.
From constructive rest, roll onto one side. Exhale, put yourself up to the seated position. From here, switch your legs over to one side. Bring your hands forward and bring yourself into tabletop position. Bring your blocks under your hands. Looking up at the top of that mat, bring your left foot forward between your hands. And right foot forward to meet it, forward fold, knees bent. Inhale, bring your arms up overhead. Exhale, release them down. Mountain.
The pose, inhale your arms up. And exhale, forward folds with the knees bent and your hands onto your blocks. Move your blocks
take a side away, and step your right foot back to a runner's lunge and lower your knee. And then send your left leg to the side. Sweep your
What is this?
tabletop.
Thank you.
And then sweep your legs over to one side as you sit back to seated pose.
From seated position. Going to the side. Find yourself in tabletop. Then grab your blocks. Inhale, step your right foot forward.
Okay, that's right.
And then your left. Yeah.
I'm gonna just add, you're not the first person to just, Annie, I'm just gonna add, I think when we step it forward, let's just clarify like runner's lunge, you know, like inhale, step your right foot forward, runner's lunge, and then it matches the breath. Exhale, left foot forward, forward fold, you know, something like, so. You weren't the only one, but I just wanted,
Okay, so inhale from right foot forward, runner's lunge, and meet the left, right.
so step the left foot forward,
Step the left foot forward,
two,
forward fold.
the breath first.
Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up. And then coming back. Exhale, exhale. And then down to
Inhale, sweep the arms up to the sky. Exhale, bring your hands down, placing them on the blocks. Inhale, step your right foot back, runner's lunge. Bring your knee down to the mat, full lunge. Bring your left knee back to the right, tabletop. From tabletop, get your legs both feet to the left. Bottom of the mat, and come into extension of your mat. Placing your hands behind the hamstring, the right leg. Slowly lower yourself down to the mat, keeping the right foot placed on the mat. Bring the left foot up to the right. Your knees can remain spaced. First mat at your side, arms facing up.
Cute. Good, let's meet back and seated. So can you see how already, like, we're getting, you're all learning from each other. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Or 3 strikes and you're out. You know? So good. Like that, I'm seeing this improvement. I can see you're all like the wheels are turning. So just kind of keeping in mind this idea of this kind of like impeccable cueing, impeccably clear cueing, so that students don't have to watch you. You know, so like ideally, once students know the postures and your names for the postures and your languaging, they can just come onto their mat, they can listen and they can do their whole thing. So that's why it's always step your foot back. Where? Get that pose name out like as quickly as you can so that they know where they're going to go. Start with the inhale, start with the exhale, start with the breath so that, you know, we're syncing up body and breath together to get that as succinct as possible. Okay, I'm going to give you a new one. And we're going to start with, I think we're going to start with Lorenzo and then end with Jessica. Okay, so I want to just make sure we're starting in different places. And we're starting in, hold on one second. We're starting in constructive rest.
Do you want to pull the cards back?
There you go. You know, that's me to you, that's yours. Oh, yeah. Don't say I never did nothing for you. And so that first time through, okay. Whoops.
Oh, I can't see it. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Okay, great. We'll follow the same idea of first time through, I get that you're just trying to get there, right? You know, and then second time through, we'll make sure we're really using our level ones. And then maybe third time we'll do the breath, see how much time we have. Technically lunch is at 12:30 today. You guys cool with that?
Yes.
Okay. Because we got one more little thing to do after this. All right, so we're in constructive rest, and Lorenzo, you can take the floor.
Okay. Inhale and pull your knees into your chest. Cross your ankles, exhale, and begin to gently rock backward and forward until you find yourself in a seat with a shift. And now place your hand on the left side of your body and shift your feet to the right side of your mat and begin to walk around into tabletop.
Okay. you're in tabletop.
Is that, I forgot the sequence. Yeah, great, yes, and done. Okay, good. Here we go.
Excellent. All right, from tabletop position, curl your toes under, raise your hips up for down dog. Looking up the top of the mat, step forward as many steps as you need. Right foot, left foot into forward fold. Inhale, roll yourself up, standing, arms come up overhead. Exhale them down. Mountain again.
Oh, you got the same one.
It's okay, it's from a different position.
Yeah, it's always different, yeah.
All right, from mountain pose, inhale to lift your arms up and exhale to lower them down, forward fold. Halfway up.
Inhale.
Inhale.
Oh, sorry,
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself. Ignore the bossy lady at the front of the room.
And exhale back to forward fold. From here, place your hands on the ground and step your right foot back into runner's lunge.
And
Yes,
that's,
blocks.
it's end there. Runner's lunge is where it ends.
Yep.
Okay, so lower your right knee. And then bring your left leg back to meet it. Now you're in tabletop. Lower down
To the ground.
to the ground. Lift your chest and let your heart shine forward. Go back.
And
Release your head, forehead back down to the mat. Feel your palms and push up into tabletop. And curl your toes underneath you, bring your hands a little closer to your knees. Inhale, exhale, push up into downward dog. Inhale. Exhale, step the foot forward in between your hands.
which foot?
Your right foot. Inhale, bring the left foot up. Exhale. Inhale, sweep your arms up to the sky. And through heart center. Arms down at your side, mountain.
Good. And
From mountain, sweep your arms up to the sky with a slight back bend and hinge forward into forward fold. Hands to the shins and straighten back to half forward fold. And back down into forward fold. I forgot which leg is supposed to be
left.
that. Okay, thank you.
The rights and lefts are like the hardest part of
Place your
teaching.
hands on the floor and send your left foot back into runner's lunge
Good. And
and
Lower your left knee to the
one
floor.
for Jessica, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. We're gonna, Carla goes, I know it seems like this, but it's a little, I gave you something a little harder, so.
Oh, great.
Gently bring your left knee softly to the ground, tops of the feet on the mat, followed by your right foot. Bring it to the back, tabletop position, neutral spine. And hands off your mat. And to the left. And bring your legs around into seated position.
We're in seated pose.
Jessica, to you.
Ooh.
Now you, Miss Jessica. Right, I know, you thought you had it, sorry.
I feel like you're being hard on me because I'm zooming. Okay, so let's swing our legs back to the right and around. We're going to tabletop. So we're on all fours in tabletop. Let's move forward with your hands into a plank position, modified plank. Then we'll walk our hands forward, lower your belly, your chest, your forehead. You can cross your arms under your forehead and spread your feet at hips length apart. Bring
In the
your forehead down on your hands for crocodile.
Thank you. Oh, isn't it nice when you just want to stay here?
Yes.
I love
This is like my favorite little back stretch and hip roll.
I know. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a class where we're like, you know, maybe 2/3 through it and we end up like in crocodile or child's. And I think, well, maybe we'll stay here. Like maybe this is it. I know we only did 1/2 of the body, but you know. Okay, good. So that's our new sequence. Now, now we're going to do it level 1. And I just want to give 1 or 2 little things here, okay? So from tabletop to seated, you don't have to move your hands, just switch your feet to the side, sit back into seated. You don't have to move your hands, okay? And then to get into tabletop, just feet to the side, hands forward, tabletop. So you don't need to micromanage the cue. I just want you to make, you to make it as easy as
Can you do
possible.
that again for seated? Because yeah, for
Yeah.
some reason that just seems
Yeah.
unreasonably complex when I did it.
Yeah, so just switch your feet to, and just one side. You don't need to right or left it. That, you know, normally I'm very particular about right or left, but this one, you're only gonna do it like once in a
It's
class,
just
so.
to get somewhere, it's not to hold a stretch or
Right,
something like
right.
that.
So feet to one side, place your hands in front of you, tabletop. Okay, so, and then switch your feet to one side, bring your sits bones to the earth, seated position. Just make it real easy for yourself. And then just a couple other little foods for thoughts. One, okay, so inhale, arms skyward, exhale, deepen the knees, forward fold. From forward fold, you can lower one knee than the other tabletop. You don't have to do lunge. You can do lunge, but you don't have to. You can just go right from forward fold to tabletop. Okay, and so this kind of depends on like sequencing, like where you're going next. So would tabletop be the best pose for you to get into? And then if it's plank pose, then that usually works better from the lunge. So like step your right foot back into runner's lunge, lower the right knee to the earth, left knee meets right knee, hands to the earth, kneeling plank. So lunge works pretty good to get into a kneeling plank, forward fold straight down to tabletop. Same thing from tabletop. You can just step one foot forward, followed by the other, forward fold. Boom. It's fine that you're adding the lunge, but I just want to liberate you and know that you can just go in from forward fold to tabletop and tabletop to forward fold. Okay. Okay, let's level 1 this mother up, okay? So constructive rest.
Inhale, pull your chest. Cross your ankles. And
Left.
then.
Level 1.
Sorry, what did you do?
That's Haley.
Okay,
Who are you?
Okay,
Yeah.
so now roll to your right
Oh,
side
good, yeah.
and push up to the seated position. And now switch your legs over to the side into tabletop.
Okay, from tabletop, bring those blocks in under your hands. Step your right foot forward between those hands, left foot forward fold, knees in. Inhale, bring the arms up overhead. Exhale them down, mountain pose. The sky,
And exhale, forward fold. One box. Up your right foot back into runner's lunge with the knee down.
And bring your left leg back into the right. Modify plank. Knees on the ground and lower to the ground. Shine your heart forward.
Inhale, bring forehead back to the ground, feel the energy in those palms. And then push yourself back up. Get up. Shoulders, taking the blocks between your hips. Inhale, place your right foot using your hand, learn lunge. Inhale, then you walk through it. Forward fold, inhale, sweep your arms up to the sky. Hands to the right center.
Inhale your arms up overhead with a slight back bend. Inch forward into forward fold, using your blocks and bending your knees in the mount. Step your left leg back into runner's lunge.
Runner's lunge, gently bring your left knee down to the ground, tops of the feet to the mat, bring your right foot around to meet it, tabletop. Remove the blocks. And bring your legs to one side and roll onto your seat. Cross legs into seated pose.
From seated, let's switch your legs to the other side. Coming back to tabletop. In tabletop, we'll walk our hands forward into a modified plank. Lower yourself slowly down, belly, chest, forehead. Bring your hands under your forehead and rest. And widen your feet about a hip's distance apart. Make sure your feet are flat on the floor for crocodile.
Let's stay here for 1 minute. In your mind, just if you have, while we're here, if you have any questions about transitions, just kind of identify what that is. And let's meet in seated pose. And seated pose, like it could be in a chair, it could be on a bolster, blanket, whatever is comfortable for you. So first thing is just transitions. So you're getting it. I can see the I can see it clicking, you know, and the wheels turning. And I can definitely tell that you guys and gals understand, or having understanding what the level 1 versus the level 2 one, and that, you know, and how getting it out in a nice, easy manner, that just comes with time, right? And so it's looking like and sounding like just adding that breath cue is going to be everyone's kind of like, you know what pose you have to get to. You understand the alignment of that pose and how to get there. And so then that last piece is going to be adding your inhale and exhale to things. Okay, questions about transitions? Yeah.
I just noticed that even though we're entering the sun salutation sequence at some point, that we don't have to do every piece of it. We don't have to do
The half forward
the
fold,
half
right?
forward fold,
Yeah.
whatever. We can get there
Yes.
through that cycle as quickly
Exactly.
as we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so a lot of that has to do, like, one can be level. So sometimes it's just like level 1 or beginners, it's easier to expedite it, you know, like less can be more. And then 2 is just time. You know, am I running out of time? And, you know, do I need to go faster? Do I have more time than I thought I would? You know, do I need to go slower and add some more in? Yeah. And you can also like hang out too, like so you can step back into lunge and like, you can make a mini event out of it, you know, and like kind of hold it for a couple breaths or something and then proceed on. Any other questions about transitions that are on the top of your mind?
I have one.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding clearly the modification, I guess, root formula would be, for me, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I would be aiming to make an easy path from one position to another, would require me to anticipate the difficulty experienced by the person, the level one participant.
So the modification, so the pose that you, easiest path from A to B and the posture that you choose would match the level of the class. Is that what you, am I restating what you just said?
I'm trying to locate it specifically to level one, so I think
Okay.
to locate it with level one, I'd have to anticipate a difficulty in avoiding it.
Yes.
So for example, when I was in constructive rest transitioning to tabletop, and I said, lift your knees into your chest and cross your ankles, you said level one. And then my question is, what challenge comes from rolling back and forth for a beginner?
It requires more core strength than one would think. And then the low back, it can put strain on the low back.
Okay. And then another question. So for people who have wrist problems,
Yeah.
even the switching legs over,
Yeah.
I usually say, I think that people intuitively use their hands to get around sometimes, and I see you don't just sit down. You know, and for some people, they needed to sort of brace for impact so that they don't fall into the ground.
Right.
But then if they have wrist problems and they are heavy or what have you, don't have good core strength, then that is a stressful situation. So the rolling over to the side and the pushing up is a barrier that I was seeing for a level one participant, and that's why I offered the first one. But I know that it required the rolling back and forth required core strength. So both paths seem to me to have a challenge. Do we have a third option?
The third option is the read the room option and read the student option. So that's where you would get to look at your students and see, like, if there is, you know, if that wrist thing is like a thing, and but the rest of their body is they're pretty able-bodied, they can move around and get up and down, then you just tell them to use the roll up. Because then you would tell them to use the roll up. So we're just kind of, but what I really think about with these are like an elderly population, a really like tight, you know, like someone who works at a desk all day and is like disconnected from their body, like some of those things go into it, but there's always like the deviance to the rule, you know, the exceptions to the rule. And that's where you have to use your discernment. You need to look at the student and kind of like help figure it out. Also keeping in mind with these transitions, like my thing is my knees, like I've got knee stuff. And so we did so many transitions, so it's a little hard on my knees right now. Your thing might be your wrist, but just keep in mind that we just did way more transitions than we would normally like do within a class. Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you.
But that is something to, just keep awareness where, like, if you're more aware of your wrist, because that's where you're, you know, where you need a little bit more strength, or my low back or your knees.
Yeah.
It's just kind of going through the body and assuming that somebody in the class is gonna possibly have an issue with one of those areas, and how do you adjust it, just to know. And I think that comes with practice too.
Yeah.
Just kind of understanding.
Well, and knowing your students, you know, so that's where like when people first start, normally there's some sort of like form that they fill out and you say, are there any like old injuries, or is there any, you know, anything you're working on, checking in. There's a practice during centering where a teacher might, when everyone's eyes are closed, ask people to touch any areas of their body that they're healing through or that they're going to take care of, so that the teacher has a little visual, like, okay, they're working on their hip, they're working on their wrist. and being just creating conversation with students. So like check in and how are you today, what's going on, so that they feel like they can come to you, you know, and say like, oh, I was raking and now my back is a little tweaked today, you know, things like that. Yeah, and there, so I mean, we can, it's over prepare, then go with the flow, you know?
Yeah, I think that when I watched Annie flip over the top of the knees.
Yeah.
I thought for myself, clearly I know that, but for you, maybe you never had that problem. So
Mhm.
my question was just saying that we are coming from not knowing, how do we get to know? We've
Yeah.
never been in the other person's position, but your answer is
Exactly.
really good. It's got, look at your participants, try to understand them, maybe have a form that collects information ahead of time, establish trust, so people are comfortable telling you. And then the other piece was, I think just think about I'm gonna create a list of common problems like wrist, core strength, and I thought for this here, it's kind of a quick high impact on various parts of the back of them.
Mhm.
So if they bruise easily,
Yeah.
or it could cause like a crashing, then that is something. I would be
Like
mindful
rod
of.
in the spine, you know, different things like that, you
Compression
know.
fractures in little old ladies in the.
Yeah,
spine, you know,
osteoporosis,
right,
yeah, there's-
osteoporosis.
But the thing, once we start thinking like, so right now we're thinking just kind of like general population. So like on some level, everyone in this room, like your yoga practice is like probably like a little elevated maybe from general population, you've been practicing for a long time, you're in a teacher training, but just think like general population. These are how we can kind of like just maintain wrists, hips, low back type stuff. Once we go into like real specialty, when we think about like truly like maybe like a senior citizen class or osteoporosis or rods in the spine, you know, things like that, then we really modify the practice and we make transitions as few as possible, you know, so we just, once we get to standing, we hang out in standing. We don't do all this rigmarole up and down and stepping back and around. We get all of our standing stuff done. And then once we get to seated, well, first of all, we find out if they can get up off the ground, you know, and so we either sit in a chair or we sit on the ground, and then we do all of our ground stuff. We do all of our prone stuff. So we just hang out in those areas and reduce the transitions as much as possible if we have a population. And I know like, you're like, how am I gonna remember all this? But you're going to do it. Like, you're going to see it. Like, you're going to see people like, you're gonna like say your beautiful cues and you have these beautiful yogis around you doing exactly what you say. And then you're going to be in front of a class and it's gonna take them 3 times as long to get there. And you're gonna be like, oh, this is, they're showing you what's hard, you know, and they're showing you what's a challenge.
So I practice with my husband and I'll cue him because like, then I know, because he's a very, like, he needs things very exact.
Very,
and
yes.
Laid out for him, so if I would practice with him and cueing.
It's very good to have someone you can, and so like one thing we do sometimes if we have a little extra time is we give you a pose and we have the cuer just turn around and cue people into a pose, but they can't say the pose name. So you give all the cues except the name of the pose and we turn around and see where everyone is. And your goal is kind of like what Sharon did, do only what they say. You know, and so then we get to, so then we get
Don't
to
anticipate
see.
what you think the pose might be.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, right, so
I
do
love
only
that.
what they say, so then you start to see like, oh, well, you told us to swish our hips, you never told us to bring them back, or you know, like we start to
Right.
just see what our cues look like.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was very blessed that my first yoga teacher, like she's just like beloved and just was such an impeccable teacher. And within our class, every week, there's a man there who was blind. And he knew what to do because her cues were spot on. So that's how I learned yoga, was like literally next to someone who was blind. And so with all these like super spot on cues, and occasionally there would be like she'd have to go help them or would be doing something different. But that's what we kind of think of. Like, if we don't want our students to have to look at us. We want, our voice is our number one teacher and our number one modification and adjuster when we're in a group situation. So we want our words to be as descriptive as possible. I even think about things, I know this is like minutia, but like drop your knee. I don't want you to drop your knee. That sounds painful to me. I'm knee sensitive, you know, softly lower your knee to the earth or place your knee on the ground. I don't know. I was in a class once and they kept saying like, let's boogie they said boogie, like, let's boogie back to down dog, let's boogie forward to forward fold, like, I guess like once or twice they do that, but like the whole class, it was, let's boogie. You're like, I don't,
Maybe not disco yoga.
it wasn't, but it wasn't. And I'm like, I'm not feeling a boogie right now, you know, like, just tell me what I need to do. So work on it. What I'm going to give you right now is just a printout of a handout, and we're going to go through these fairly quickly. This is more of a reference, and these are alternate arm shapes. So when we think about postures that our hands are not supporting us, so not tabletop, not plank, so when we're in seated, when we're in mountain, when we're in warrior one, when we're in warrior two, we have traditional arm positions, and then we can also use different arm positions, and that can just be used, one, to like spice things up, you know, just for like variation and to get little new stretches and things going on in the posture. And then two, once we start thinking about peak pose sequencing, which is not yet, you know, it's not next module, once we start getting that point, sometimes a different arm position can better prepare the body for what's coming next. So we might choose an alternate arm shape to support our peak posture. What we're going to do right now is just go through these alternate arm shapes, and there's nothing, I doubt there's anything in here that's going to be like mind blowing for anyone, you know? So just thinking about, here you go. Jessica, if you can log into the Google Classroom, the
Yeah.
alternate arm shapes is under module 2 also.
Okay.
One thing that we don't have would be like a good tool for learning is bearing witness to people receiving instructions. I think as a student, you are always in a position of looking at the teacher. If you're never in a position of teacher,
Yeah.
you don't have the opportunity to witness people offer you information. So is that something that the instructor, the variety of instructors teaching us would be willing to allow us to do, like come in and sit and watch an instruction? Is that something that has been provided before?
No, and for a specific reason, because people would ask that, and even sometimes with the studio, people would say, can I come watch a class? And it's a no, because it's very uncomfortable for the students to be watched. They sign up to come to a class and not to like have someone watch themselves. So that is a skill that you get through teaching. So through practice teaching, you're gonna get to see your cues on other people. Through homework, there's some like teaching, you know, a couple times where you're asked to teach someone else, a friend, a family member, something of that nature. And then that becomes something that you develop, you know, through experience and such, you develop, because most people don't want someone to come and like, that can be very like uncomfortable for students. Yeah. It's a tricky one.
If you go to a class, go to the back of the class and then you can watch what
Uh-huh.
they're doing while you're doing the yoga.
Yeah.
Yes. Keep a little eye on things.
Just don't hurt your neck.
Okay, so find yourself just like in a comfortable seated position, so you can just bring your hands and your arms into some of these postures. So one alternate arm shape is goalpost arm. So we just go into it and we feel the feels. So where do you feel it?
Back, upper back.
Upper back, what do you feel?
Blades come together a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
the
it's-
blades coming together, but also stretching in the upper shoulder.
The chest,
abs.
yeah. So you're strengthening the upper back and stretching the upper chest. Yeah. Good. What's the pose that you might need a strong upper back and a big open heart for?
Warrior 2,
Yeah.
warrior 1, warrior 1.
Mountain.
Think like advanced asana. Wheel, you know, and so, you know, things like, yeah, right, yeah.
Upper
This is part
dog.
of goddess. Is this
Upper
part of
dog,
goddess?
yeah.
Oh yeah, goddess pose.
Goddess, right, okay. So that's, and it lists possible postures here and then what it prepares the body for. So it's just on there, so you've got a little reference.
Would lotus be one as well?
You could do, yes, you could do it in
It
lotus as
says
well.
easy pose, easy seated
Easy
pose, so
seated
why not
pose.
lotus, right?
Yeah.
Tree, it says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like any pose that you don't need your hands for support. These can pretty much all be used for. All right, the next one is chest expansion. That's when we clasp our hands behind the back. It's just hard to do if you're seated in a chair, but if you're on the ground, you can do that. So when you do that, where do you feel it?
Stretch across the chest.
Yes.
Opens the collarbone,
Yeah.
lifts the sternum.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like a increased sensation of the goalpost, right? So this is strengthening the upper back, opening the chest. This, if you squeeze your shoulder blades towards each other, you're gonna get the strengthening of the upper back and then the stretch of the chest
This
as
feels
well.
more about the shoulders
Yeah.
to me.
Your shoulder blades going down the back of your spine.
So this is kind of like really good for all the forward stuff we do in our life, like just getting our hands behind our back in general is very, very healthy, even if it's just like standing, like when you're standing, you can just kind of like do this versus like, I don't know, whatever you do with your arms. Anytime we can get our hands behind our back, it just helps to realign those soft tissues.
This help with bridge when you are trying to roll your shoulders in.
Yeah, so if you're doing that variation of bridge, then this would be like a great thing. Then if you know that you're going to teach that variation of bridge with chest expansion, then I would definitely use chest expansion somewhere else in the practice. Mountain pose, seated pose, warrior one, like warrior two. There's a million options. And that's that layer cake sort of thing too, how we're like, we're teaching stuff as we go and preparing the body as we go. All right. Just two little things about chest expansion. One is, in general, we're working towards our, I had a teacher call it the heels of your hands are kissing, and I like that. But so the heels of the hands towards each other. So that might not be feasible today, but that's the energy we're working towards with that. And then the other thing to know is that I almost always, if I'm teaching chest expansion, I almost always do it twice. The first time I let people clasp their hands as they would. And the second time I have them switch the clasp of their hands so the other thumb is on the outside, because that is an imbalance that we all have, and it feels super weird, like rubbing your belly and patting your head weird. So so I almost always would teach it twice just to make sure we get both of it. All right.
That's a really good, that palms of the base of your hands coming together.
Yeah.
Whenever I've done it, I've always got to have this little like
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Instead of,
Yeah, we're working it towards each other. But with respect to the,
right.
pain-free. Eagle arms. So we've got our
I have no
eagle
idea what
arms.
that is. Is it- this is eagle arms?
You don't need to, I think. So eagle arms is good. So eagle arms is when we cross one elbow over the top, and then you can start with the backs of the hands touching or the palms of the hands touching. We want to bring the shoulders onto the back body and lift the elbows up to the height of the shoulders. Yes. So, and just release for a second. So where do you feel that?
Shoulder stretch for sure.
Mid upper step.
Right here, right?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
honestly, for the modern body, I know like people go into that pose and they're like, oh yeah, they think it's so good. Same with like thread the needle, like, oh yeah, but that is actually just lengthening a muscle that's already too long. We're too here. And it feels so good because a long muscle that's stuck long, so long and tight is the most painful muscle. That is more painful than a short, tight muscle. Overstretched and tight is going to be the most painful. And so I honestly rarely would come across anyone in the Western world who doesn't have too long of muscles up here in their upper back. It'd be an interesting
body to come across. And so I know it feels so good because it's an uncomfortable muscle. It's where you want to get massaged. It's where you want to, you know, like you want someone to stick their thumb in there, but that's actually making it, lengthening it, and big picture, creating more discomfort. So we use that judiciously, you know, like as needed. So if we're teaching eagle pose, then we would probably teach eagle arm somewhere earlier in the practice, just so we get that under, you know, under wraps. But that I often just teach eagle pose with like prayer hands or hands on hips. I skip the eagle arms. And so with this long tight muscle, the movement becomes, so I get that it's tight and it's uncomfortable. Stretch isn't the only thing available to us. Movement is available to you too. So you can work through the tension through just bringing it in and out of vinyasa, in and out of range of motion, can break up the tension, but not actually. A stretch lengthens the muscle.
So when you do this one, are you're actually stretching it again, right?
Well,
Is it like
when
a
you do
happy
that
balance?
guy, your shoulder should stay in the shoulder socket.
It is, right?
It looks like it's coming forward. Yeah, so pull, yeah, so you want to make sure you keep your left shoulder pulling back into the shoulder socket so that there is not a stretch.
Okay.
Yeah, and then focus on the rotation in the ribs. Yeah. But a lot of us just, you know, like, I can do it, you know, and that one's very hard for, I got short arms again. So like, it's very, I have to like, kind of like, you know, work to get something to like hook my elbow onto. So that can be a tricky one.
Can I ask a question that maybe is a bit of a tangent? What's the inversion to counteract the long muscle in the back here that you talked about?
The opposite.
Yeah.
So goalpost arms,
goalpost.
chest expansion. And we're about to do eagle, or I'm sorry, cow's face arms.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm. So yeah, that's what's next is cow's face arms.
Why is it called cow's face?
I don't know. It had one yoga teacher. She's like, I would never call a lady a cow, but it's supposed to be like your arms are the ears. Okay. It gets, I feel like anatomy wise, it's a little bit vulgar. Like one's chest is like the eyes, you know, and so it's like your face is supposed to, or your body is supposed to resemble a cow's face.
Okay.
Your legs do something.
In full cow's face pose, your legs are here, you know, this is like full cow's face pose, but we're just exploring kind of cow's face. It's just the alternate arm shapes. So, in a perfect world, your hands would touch and you would feel the clasp. But in a realistic world, most people are here, right? They're not touching, or you can touch on one side and the other side, it's not available to you. So we can always use a looped strap is actually the easiest. If you loop a strap and then you can hold on to
I have a
that.
question about that, because I've got that. Can do it from one side and do it from the other. So I can't do it from this side.
Yeah.
So is it this shoulder that's tight? Is this shoulder the culprit, or is this shoulder the culprit?
May I see it on the other side? Okay, and now switch. It's your left shoulder.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So lots of just kind of like raised shoulder, an inability to release the scapula down,
Okay. Thank you.
which can come, yeah.
Can that ever improve?
Oh, yeah. We can change, if you have an imbalance, it's often because of your right-handed or left-handed. It has to do with your dominant hand. So you can improve it, but you'll likely always have a discrepancy from right to left side. Okay, so that cow's face, again, it's really nice for you can feel it stretching your chest and the front of your shoulders, and this area right here, this is the point of insertion of the pectoral muscles, which is very tender and very tight, but when we stimulate the point of insertion of a muscle, it then informs the remainder of the muscle to release. Reverse namaste. That is palms behind our back. So most people
this is accessible to them, like they're with their fingertips pointing down, but this can be hard on the wrist joints, so we want to be mindful and careful of that. For some people, palms face up is accessible. Obviously, this is much more intense on the wrist joint, but the palms don't have to touch. We can move it towards. But if anyone does have wrist things going on, generally, if someone has wrist things going on, I would just have them grab their elbows. Or start with the fingers down, but not insist, like have them bring the heels of their hands towards each other, and staying in a pain-free range of motion. And you can feel, again, these are all, this is why I really like these alternate arm shapes and why I almost always I often use them, just because other than the eagle arms, they all expand the chest, which our body needs. So I figure, well, if we're gonna be here, we may as well be here, or we may as well be here, something like that, to just keep helping our body be pain-free and bring ourselves back into balance and alignment. All right. So those are static positions for the arms. And then the bottom half of here are flowing options for the arms. So one option with our goalpost arms, and this can be done like on your back, it can be done seated, it can be done standing. We can do fingers down and up. And so kind of feel that movement. And again, movement is, oh, this is it. I couldn't remember this line. Motion is lotion. And Heather would not let me put that as the subject line of a constant contact, but it's true. So movement lubricates the joints and the muscles. Motion is lotion. So don't say that. I guess you can say that.
I'm gonna text it to her.
Yeah. She's like, you can't, really. So this, again, so you can feel just like our shoulder joints, we just don't, we go through like very similar movements like all the time. So it just kind of brings us into a position that, into movement. And then you can also do it alternating. Like,
I don't even get with a.
Why can't you
Yeah.
say it as a subject line? I think that's
Alternating.
fine. That'd be an opener. That'd be an easy
well, that
opener.
you would open, yeah, well,
I'd
see,
open
there
it.
we go. Yeah.
That's pretty
And then he's
easy.
super disappointed, like, oh,
No.
she's just talking about vinyasa. So you can do this alternate, and this is a really nice thing. I like to do this on the back because it blocks the shoulder blades
Mhm.
on the ground, so then you really get an honest answer of where your range of motion is.
Can you do wall, like against a wall?
Oh, yeah,
Can you do, like, a
sure.
seated wall position?
Yeah,
and
the wall becomes the floor then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So for
So
those
you
that
would
can't
do
get on
like
the
this?
floor.
Yeah, so see when your shoulders really start rolling forward, you just start to understand where that changes.
I feel like on the floor, I can get it closer to where I think I should.
I always tell my kids to kind of like step on my shoulders.
I know,
It's like,
so good. Shoulder circles, so just, it sure feels good, right? I mean, anytime someone says like a neck roll or a shoulder circle, it's automatic, like, oh, right? Because we just, again, that's that movement through those tight areas. Arm circles. So I'm not saying these, although you can do this in like warrior two and like really strengthen the arm, but arm circles are more like inhale, arms up, exhale, arms down type thing, or inhale, arms up, exhale, hands through prayer. So you've got different options. And these can be nice when you are really, like you want to stabilize something, like we want to keep the bottom half of the body steady, and we want to trick them into being there for a longer period of time. And so we just give them something to do with their arms, and it's never going to be a bad thing unless you have like a torn rotator cuff or something like that, in which case you would have to go forward and down.
Snow angel arms.
Yes, yeah. And it just feels good, right? I mean, I feel like we're so like here all the time. So just even like taking up space feels good to just get out into your periphery, I guess.
What was the modification for a torn rotator cuff?
Arms in front of you. And the thing about a torn rotator cuff is they can't do it. Like they literally can't. So you can't injure them in making them do it because it's diagnostic, yeah. Uh-huh. All right, last one are lateral bends, which I heart. And so this could be static or movement. And now this is one of those good ones to know when we talk about pelvis instability. So what I'm just going to show you what I see a lot. So I'm just going to show you correct. So my pelvis is neutral and the movement is in my side body. So my spine is coming into a C shape. All right. What we see a lot of is helping, yeah, like nailed it, so we want to make sure wherever, if we're in mountain, if we're in seated, if we're in lunge, that we're focusing on stability in the pelvis and that C shape with the spine. Otherwise, like go ahead, put one arm up. Don't go into a lateral bend at all. Just lean your torso to the other side. Like you're not really getting much of anything. Like you can bypass the stretch. And now come back up, stabilize the pelvis. Don't let your torso lean. You're just going to move the spine into a C shape. And you feel that? Yeah, and that's where, this thoracic spine needs so much movement brought into it. And since it's so tight, and this is, we'll talk about this when we break down like triangle pose this afternoon. It's so tight. We aren't even aware, and you can't, it's very hard to like, without maybe a mirror or a person like a trained eye watching you, your hips do it for you, because like it's just so tight. And so we're just used to letting our hips do it for us. Our hips do the rotation, our pelvis just goes forward and back. So when we start to really stabilize that pelvis and bring the movement into the thoracic spine, it's humbling because we have about 5% of the pose that we thought we had, but ultimately it's empowering because you are bringing movement into an area of your body that is frozen. Okay, so 12:35, lunchy lunchtime. So we'll be back here at 1:35. When we meet back here, we will be doing practice teaching, and I will give you about, I'm going to give you a little bit of information